Hello, everyone. Why'd you stare at me like that?
Because I thought you were going to scream. Then you didn't.
I didn't. Because the whole thing I wanted to do was like freak you out. You completely freaked it. The look on your face was priceless. You didn't know whether to take off your headphones or cans, as they're known in the industry.
Wow.
Oh, I feel like such a douche saying that.
Yeah, you should.
Hello. Welcome to Gritty Reboot. I'm Pedro.
And I'm Meredith.
We botched the intro of the show, but that's okay. It happens every now and then that way. We are finishing up the American Werewolf series, I suppose, which is just the two movies.
Yeah.
Not really much of a series, but it's the only way to really link them. As we said, the American Werewolf in Paris that we talked about last week was sort of a loose sequel, I guess. Quasi-reboot. It's very strange. It was originally imagined as a sequel, and then certainly morphed into a reboot without any of the involvement of the original characters.
To me, it's a reboot because it's like, it's Paris. It's a totally different, like, I'm sure there's another woman in it, whatever, if you want to compare.
Another woman. Yeah.
But there's three guys.
There's three guys.
In Paris.
Three of them.
And there's only two guys in London.
Yeah.
So
you're concerned about the ratio of dudes, of Americans who could possibly be werewolves in the movie.
I'm just saying, if you're going to compare the two, there's nothing really similar except the fact that there's dudes and girls in it.
There's dudes and girls in it. So this is only similar to other movies that have dudes and girls in it. But if it's Koyaanisqatsi that features no actors of any kind, just scenery, that's a movie. But that's different.
No, that's not a movie.
It's not a movie.
No.
It's a movie.
No, it doesn't have a narrative.
Yes, it does. It's the story of nature, the story of life.
It doesn't have a narrative.
Story of life.
It's an art piece.
Yeah, it is an art piece. A beautiful art piece.
It's an annoying.
I love that movie. One day we'll cover Koyaanisqatsi.
It's just like that fucking baby movie you made me watch. It's like a bunch of babies.
Yeah, just shots of babies. That's what I was like.
Like, what are you trying
I was
to
like,
tell
it's
me?
Koyaanisqatsi mom can watch. It's, there you go. You can just watch 90 minutes of cute little babies. Is that bad? Is it wrong? No. A movie doesn't always have to have.
I had kids, though.
Yeah, a movie doesn't have to have a fucking narrative and a plot. Or everything does not have to be literal. You can have some fun with film. At least that's what I appreciate in those sorts of movies. Something that like Godfrey Reggio would have made, or even Babies. I never followed up on Babies if they made a follow up. Toddlers.
Maybe.
Just kept on going down the line until it's just like sullen teens just telling you to fuck off.
Yeah.
So that is our discussion about non-narrative films. And if you would like more information about this topic, non-narrative films from Pedro and Meredith, you can email us, get out the old AOL dial-up, baby, and send us an email, grerebootcast@gmail.com. That's at gmail.com. Don't send it to Ask Jeeves.
Or Yahoo.
Send it to Gmail, not Yahoo. No more. None of that. No, don't use Excite. Or you can simply look for Gritty Reboot on Instagram or TikTok. I almost forgot what social media was for a minute. You can look for that on Friendster. So yes, and that's the easiest way to find us. I'm also available at Disillusionist13 on X or Twitter. It's the first time I used X first because over time I just got used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Twitter made more sense.
Mm.
I understand it's more syllables than X, but like lots of things are X.
It's run by a big man child.
Yeah. Of all the things he's done, that was probably one of the dumbest.
Yeah.
Something to draw attention to himself, I suppose. Okay.
All right. You want to know how this fucker starts?
I do want to know how this fucker starts. Actually, you know what? Before we get into the movie, can we talk about John Landis?
Let's get all serious.
Can we get our serious hat on?
Mm.
So I get John Landis is a murderer and should have gone to prison.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to say that right now. And I want you to know, I think John Landis deserved prison time for what occurred on the set of The Twilight Zone. If you do not know about it, basically, under his watch, he basically broke some safety rules on set and had children on set out past the time they're supposed to be done. And anyway, he had a stunt that was being done close to them that was way too dangerous. It went awry, and they were killed by a helicopter that crashed right on top of them. Character actor Vic Morrow and two young Asian American actors were also killed in the crash. And under no uncertain terms, this was John Landis's fault. And I want to mention that right now because this is about divorcing the art from the artist.
Yeah.
And later on, we're going to cover films by Roman Polanski, who was convicted of rape and has skirted those charges by escaping to Europe.
Mhm.
and hiding among people who have sympathy for him. And listen, that does not change the content of his films. Woody Allen, Woody Allen made a lot of movies, and occasionally he made some great ones. What he did privately is not necessarily going to affect how I look at his art. Will it change perspective on it over time? Certainly. But I still think there's a value in taking a look at that. And that's the one thing I wanted to mention as we cover a few of the more controversial directors. And I wanted to mention that about John Landis. John Landis is known for his comedies and, Coming to America, Trading Places. Coming to America, he made after The Twilight Zone. So he still had quite a bit of success after that incident. And I'm not really going to deep dive it because I think we will actually dedicate an episode to talking about that because I think it's a really fascinating topic. And I'm a bit surprised today that he has as much reputation and esteem even with that hanging around him. But I think it's something we'll discuss in further topic. But it's just something I wanted to bring up right now as we talked about him, as I do admire the man's early work. I very much do. This movie is a personal favorite of mine.
Yeah.
As we now move into talking about how we, first discovered this movie. This is one I always heard about. I knew was very good. And I think I was about 11 or 12 and it was going to come on AMC when it was actually like American Movie Classics and disqualified. And I remember watching it and really just being blown away by how different the movie was. Like I had a lot of expectations for what it could be and none of those were met. It was incredibly different than any other werewolf movie I'd really seen by, once again, having a different style of wolf. Most movies do bipedal. This was on four legs.
Yeah.
And then we have
Fought For by Rick Baker.
Yeah. And then we have the comedy elements in it as well that I think are very different. Most horror movies are very, very serious, and this was one of the pioneers of horror comedy. Doesn't have Abbott and Costello in it, or like Young Frankenstein was up there as well, but that's a pure comedy, right? There's not really any horror in it. It's a comedy, with just the horror dressing. It's a parody of those things, but it's not never meant to be scary. This is meant to be both. And it rides the line pretty damn well, I think. And it's held up over time pretty nicely.
It does okay. The comedy is very dry.
Yeah, but I think there are some legitimate laughs in this movie still, even to this day.
Yeah, I guess.
Whew. Man, that was a rough review for Meredith. I thought she was a fan.
Well, I actually read online that people review-wise have considered it a horror comedy, and I just don't consider it a comedy. I consider it a horror.
I think it certainly is more on the horror side.
Yeah,
but I think horror comedy is maybe a rough term for this one because people compare it to Shaun of the Dead, and it's nothing like that. Even though I can see Edgar Wright list that as one of the influences on him for Shaun of the Dead. And I can see, what he's talking about because those people were knowledgeable about the myths about werewolves and things like that. And we're years before Scream starts doing that, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking about the werewolf myths and bullshit to, just talking out, what was done in the Wolfman and shit, And I think that's fun, because people have seen those movies. That's a common shared knowledge between anybody who's watching a movie in 1981. 81, correct?
Yep, 81.
Yeah, 81. So, and I think that's just an interesting thing that's sort of laid out in this movie.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me in this movie was the effects. I think the effects are fantastic.
Yeah, they hold up today. They look really great.
They are great.
Yeah, they really do.
Rick Baker is a madman.
Yeah, he is a true artist. I mean, the work that he really gets accomplished here, you can't take your eyes off the screen during the transformation scene.
Yeah, it's good.
It's still that good. It's still really.
I have a fun story later about that whole thing.
Okay.
With Rick Baker and John Landis.
Okay, so with that out of the way, talk about John Landis, how we saw the movie. Did you say how you saw this movie for the first time?
I saw it with you.
You saw it with me? I showed it to you?
Movies, yeah.
Yeah, oddly enough, this is one that wasn't very easy to catch on television, right?
No, I never. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, this is a movie that oddly, I remember it being a big deal that it was on AMC because I had wanted to see it, and the local video store that was in Refugio at L&M Video, I think, had a shitty back selection of movies. And they had a bunch of Spanish movies instead of having a collection of Hollywood older movies and stuff like that. So it really took a while to see it. You forget that you couldn't just Google and have access to a movie just like that. So
yeah, it
was sort of a big deal. But I was glad I got to show it to you for the first time.
Yeah, as most movies you have, because I was just I wasn't really. Well, you remember when we weren't dating? I had that
You had
TV.
a black and white television.
Yeah, I had a black and
You had a
white.
black and white television in like
Watch a lot of
2008.
television at some point.
Yeah, I understand that, but you were aware of the invention of color, were you not? This isn't like one of those just like, well, because I can understand if you like, oh man, my TV went out last week and I got to buy another one. I get it, but you were just like, nah, man, it is what it is.
Yeah, like I had that TV forever and I just kept with it.
Yeah. I remember we watched, when I got introduced to that TV that you had, thankfully we could watch Teeth on a color model, right?
Yeah.
Your roommate had a color TV.
Yeah.
But I did say I got to see this black and white TV. It's astounding to even see such a thing. I should have kept it. People love CRTs that still work today, so maybe it would have been worth something.
That thing was on its last leg.
How heavy was? That's the one
Yeah.
thing people sort of forget when they talk about like, oh man, CRT, that must have been nice. I'm like, yeah, the picture was really nice actually, but the biggest problem was how goddamn heavy they were. I had to move a 36-inch up to a 5th floor.
Yeah.
That when I moved out of my first apartment, oh my god, me and like 4 other guys, we almost killed ourselves getting that thing up all those stairs.
Yeah, I can imagine.
God, I hated that. All right, this isn't the this is the podcast about
scrolling here.
CRT televisions. All right, this is not what we came here to do. But if you like to subscribe to my podcast, CRT World. That is a joke. Let's move on.
La 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 la. Isn't this fun? Lovely stroll on the moors.
Did you hear that?
I heard that.
What is it?
You think it's a dog?
Nice doggy. Good boy.
What happened to them?
Well, the police report said they were attacked by an escaped lunatic.
A wolf. My friend Jack was just here. Ah! Told me that I will become a monster in 2 days.
Your dead friend, Jack.
Yes.
Gotta believe me, David.
Believe what? You're one of the undead, and I'm a werewolf.
Tomorrow night's the full moon. You're gonna change.
A what?
You'll become...
I know. A monster.
How's this movie start?
This movie starts with a beautiful mountain scenic views and a classic song playing, Blue Moon.
Yeah, that's going to be sort of the thing in this movie is there's going to be a moon theme or pun. There's going to be like a moon theme to basically every song that's going to play in this movie.
Yeah.
This is kind of an odd score. John Landis is an odd guy.
A truck with a bunch of sheep drive up and let 2 guys come right out the back. And those 2 guys are Jack and David. And they are very, very cold tourists on a 3-month jaunt.
Yeah, so I want to say right off the bat is the one thing the other film struggled with that this movie does not is the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we watched another movie earlier, and I know I'm immediately getting off topic once we try to get back on. But My Best Friend's Exorcism.
Yes.
And I told you I read that book, and the whole book was about friendship. And the movie completely bungled that element of it, and hence it fell apart completely. And was mediocre to, or less than that, to someone who didn't read the book and just, you know, a waste of time to someone who did.
I give it a 4.
So, yeah, it wasn't great. Yeah, that's around where I was. So it certainly wasn't a fun experience as a book reader, especially how, what I thought could be done with it to actually what was. But that is such a core element that needs to be accomplished because it wasn't done in the previous movie that we talked about, American Werewolf in Paris. I think their friendship is very superficial.
Very
I don't buy that these guys are friends. You can play all the Smash Mouth songs that you want, but I don't really buy that those guys are friends. It just doesn't really come together. And it's not necessarily a fault of the actors. I mean, it kind of is. But, you know, that movie just didn't build to it. But this is the one thing John Landis is really good at, bros. One of his strongest movies, The Blues Brothers, which is still amazing, is just about 2 brothers. And he can understand that relationship between two men. And I think that's this movie's strongest relationship. And I think we'll get into this later when we talk about his love interest and her weird blind spots. But yeah.
She has no red flags.
Yeah. She just like red flags, keep on going.
Yeah.
Is that first down? Is that how that works? She just keeps on going. But he just really excels at these buddy relationships. And these guys come out firing with these bickering back and forth as they walk through the moors.
Yeah.
And you instantly relate to both of these guys. And it's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to do. And it is really just one of the things this movie does effortlessly. There's so many movies that like try to get across this friend relationship and fail miserably, but this really does.
Yeah, and even in my notes, I put the 2 guys talk about hot chicks. They want to bang and knock jokes. It establishes their close relationship as friends.
Yeah, and this is David Naughton.
Griffin Dunn.
Thank you. Griffin Dunn as Jack Goodman. And these 2 really are great.
Yeah.
Just fantastic chemistry. You almost wish there was more, but it makes what's there really stand out, even when it's only a puppet.
Well, they go into a pub called the Slaughtered Lamb.
Which has just the most welcoming sign
I
in
know.
the world, which is like a wolf's head, a severed wolf's head, right?
Yeah.
On a steak?
Yeah, on like a knife or something.
On a knife. That's right. It's not on a pike or anything. It's on a knife. So very inviting.
Yeah. And when they walk in, everyone stares at them.
Yeah, like everyone in there is doing standard pub stuff, and there's almost like a small like record scratch when they come in. I say small record scratch because this is only a small one.
Jack and David spot a pentagram on the wall surrounded by candles, the mark of the Wolfman.
Yeah, so we instantly get a reference to that old movie, the old Universal film, and because that's really the only time I can think of when he shows that symbol is associated with lycanthropy.
Yeah.
Lycanthropy?
Lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy?
I think it's lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy.
No.
Lycanthropy.
Don't do that.
I have lycanthropy in Cuba.
Okay.
All right, I'll reel it in. The show's off the rails. Okay, so what was I talking about? So anyway, McCready comes out of the... Okay, we're way off base, way off base. What were we talking about?
We're not talking about the thing.
Oh, we're not? Oh,
No.
man, that's my favorite movie.
I know.
Okay, we're talking about another one of my favorite movies, American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
So they've headed into the moors, and I love the pentagram on the wall, and their eyes immediately drawn to it. Because I think if you and I walked into a pub and saw that, immediately we'd be like, what the fuck is up with the devil symbol?
Yeah, we'd leave.
Yeah, like, well, we better be hitting the old dusty trail.
Or should we leave? Maybe the locals know something.
I like where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would stay.
Yeah. There's a mystery that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
One of the patrons tells a joke about the Alamo, and everyone laughs, and it kind of gets a little jovial in there.
Yeah, it's a little
Everybody
racist
relaxes.
joke. It's not a bad joke or anything like that.
Just racist.
Yeah, it's just a little racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's against Texans. I'm a Texan. I laughed. It was fine.
Very well.
Yeah, even though I would be the Mexican in question.
Yeah.
If falling out of the plane, I'd chuckle. Like, ha ha, that was a good one. No, let's move on.
David asks about the pentagram on the bar
So they have this little bicker back and forth.
of who's going to ask.
And immediately, once they're done telling the story, and once he tells the punchline about remember the Alamo, like the place erupts in laughter, like it's the funniest goddamn thing they ever heard in their lives. And immediately when he asks that question, that is the big record scratch. Everybody stops. The dart player misses his shot and intimidatingly asks him, "You made me miss." And everything starts getting a little heated at that moment. They got to get out of there. And it seems like the wise decision.
Yeah. Well, the bar just stops cold. They decide they're going to go ahead and go. And the bartender's like, we can't let him go. She keeps saying that. Everybody's like, stick to the road. Don't go on the moors. You know, you'll be fine. They're like, get your ass out of here.
Yeah, and this whole time, like as they're walking, and of course immediately they leave the roads and start walking across the moors. Because when we cut to them outside, we're cutting back and forth between the bartender pleading with everyone there to save these two gentlemen because they can hear the wolf howling. And when we hear the wolf howl, we see that they're no longer on the road. They're just walking on the moors like they were told not to do, like a couple of dumb American tourists.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're walking and continuing their banter as the wolf gets ever closer. And this is surprisingly effective for how it's shot.
It starts to rain, and I know that John Landis intentionally shot this movie in, I think, January or February, where the worst weather.
Yeah.
He wanted that kind of atmosphere for the movie.
Yeah.
So it starts to rain on the moors, and it's a nice little scene they're setting up here.
Yeah, certainly the rain has an incredible effect, and it's why it comes and goes.
Yeah.
Because it's real rain.
And the lighting's really done well.
Yeah, and like I said, the cinematography in the movie really is excellent for the budget level of the film. Yeah, for the budget level and age, yes. You could think the film could be surprisingly more modern than it is. There's only a few things to really give it away as like a late 70s, early 80s production.
Mm-hmm. The bartender still feels bad about letting them go, but the patrons are like, they'll be fine. It's none of their fucking business. Then they hear a wolf howl. It's a full moon. They didn't stick to the roads.
Yeah, so they are in shit shape here. And the way this is shot is interesting because I think a lot of movies are going to show you characters staring off into the darkness. And this movie never really does that. Instead, we are very much focused on the reaction of our two main characters.
Yeah.
We are watching them as their fear grows, as they're laughing it off, trying to take it seriously. And then once they take it seriously and assess the threat, we can see the real fear come on their face when they start turning around and going back to the slaughtered lamb, the last place in the world they wanted to be 10 minutes ago.
They hear some growling and get concerned. They start running. Then the wolf attacks Jack, and David runs. He just runs.
Yeah, so David trips right before this happens, and there's like one nice little moment of levity, perfect for a little horror comedy. He goes over to help his friend out, and he's immediately mauled and destroyed by the wolf. I mean, just completely destroyed. And David runs, just out of complete fear. He runs for a solid 10 seconds before he stops and comes back, and even says, Jack, I've got to go back. And he goes back to him, and it's already too late. Jack is completely destroyed.
Yeah, he's totally mauled by Jack.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah. Their werewolf starts attacking David and bites him, but the bar patrons shoot the werewolf and kill him.
Yeah.
And it's this like old dude.
Yeah, yeah.
No telling how long he's been doing that.
Yeah, well, obviously there's like a tradition at the bar, so it's something that goes on every month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something they're used to. So, I mean, it could have been 10, 15 years this guy's been running around as the wolf, and they finally had the courage to do it because they accidentally sent two guys out to their demise.
David ends up at the hospital.
I did want to say one thing before we moved on, and it was that I did discover in my research that a lot of people were confused initially about who that was laying on the ground next to him naked.
Oh, yeah?
And I thought that was incredibly strange. I thought it was super clear that that's the werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people thought that was his friend, Jack.
No.
Yeah, exactly, right? And people...
It's like an old dude.
Exactly. People were very confused by that. And they felt weird that, like, Jack didn't say anything. And even on... I listened to a couple of podcasts about this movie, a standard movie podcast I listened to, and then another one I just picked out at random. Two of their hosts brought the same topic up. And I thought that was really interesting. And I read that in one of the reviews also that I'd looked at. And I thought that was strange. And I wanted to ask you about it because I thought it was super clear.
Weird.
Strange. Peculiar.
David ends up at the hospital. The doctor talks of his condition, and David kind of wakes up. They tell him he's in a hospital in London. They tell him Jack's dead. He flips out for a moment.
So there's this American dude there from the embassy. And like, he is completely horrified that David has a human reaction to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, David is inconsolable, as any of us would. You know, you wake up from a drink, you wake up from a long coma into a nightmare. Yeah, his friend is dead and he's been mauled, and you know, it's a horrible thing. And this guy's, sir, calm down. This is no reason to lose your mind over this. And I gave him a little British accent, but it's the American dude, and he's completely horrified by this. Like, even the British guy's like, chill out, man. Like he just lost his friend. Calm down. It's just a weird little character trait that I like. Some bureaucrats over here can't imagine that he would have sorrow for his friend.
Well, they have to give him an injection to calm him down. So
yeah.
Scotland Yard shows up and has to come to speak with the doctor about the attack.
And they're portrayed like a couple of buffoons because one of the guys knocks over the bedpans.
Yeah.
And then he can't put them back together.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to do it. See, I just didn't find that hilarious.
No, I don't know if it's necessarily hilarious, but I like how it portrays the character, you know. We certainly understand them as like, certainly not something to be taken seriously. And they're not going to look into it. They're going to take the official report. It's the doctor has to do the research.
Comedic moments are very dry.
Okay.
Scotland Yard comes to interview David as well, and he tells them it was a wolf that attacked him. But they say it was a man, because apparently wolves are like rare.
Yeah, wolves should be hunted to extinction in England. So that's just not, you're really not going to run into a wolf. So that's why it's incredibly unlikely, why they really don't believe him at all. Like you said, very rare.
Then we get this.
It's not like here in the States, we got wolves everywhere.
We almost have this dreamlike situation where David is naked running through the forest and he's hunting a deer. And he attacks the deer. And
I like the music that plays here underneath these scenes. It's very unsettling because for the most part, the movie is kind of silent and we have to get some standard diegetic music. And we have the moon songs that we talked about, older rock songs. And when we get this orchestral score, it automatically feels a little eerie and strange. And we're just getting, it's not even on a Steadicam. It's just like a handheld shot, like waist level. And it just has this otherworldly feel to it as we start, and it immediately begins the creep factor. And one of the highlights of this movie is these dream sequences, and this is a great way to start them.
Yeah, I like it too. It's classic, and I've seen it before in other movies.
Yeah.
Since.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good part of the werewolf mythos. Like as you transform, you have these horrible dreams.
We see a nurse making her rounds, and she asks about David. The orderly says to get the hell out of here.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he's quite annoyed with her.
Yeah.
She goes to check to see if he's eaten, and he hasn't. She tells him she can't do her job until he's given his medication, and she can't give his medication until he eats.
Yeah, so she like cuts his food like a baby.
Yeah. The nurse feeds him, and then David has more nightmares and tells his doctor about it.
Yeah, so he has a quick little scene with Alex, and what's this nightmare?
I don't know. I just wrote David has nightmares and tells his doctor.
Very well.
Yeah.
I was using you to keep the dream sequences straight. That's okay. That's okay.
It might not have been a nightmare at all. I don't know. He insists again he was attacked by the animal.
Yeah, and he really is insistent about it, even as the doctor tries to, I guess, not necessarily back up, but go with the official story.
So the doctor decides to send a nurse in to look after David at his request. And it's the same nurse.
Alex.
Yes, Alex.
Who is smitten. She's got it bad for David.
Yeah, he checks her out and gives her a little flirty to her, and she reads to him.
Yeah, she reads to him, which is a really weird scene. Because, like, she's just reading her book, and he's staring at her. He's like, I didn't know you were awake. And I was like, he's staring at you.
Yeah.
How do you not? Do you think I'm awake right now, Meredith? Huh? Do you think I'm awake right now as I stare into your eyes?
I think I would know if you were staring at me.
But, yeah, it's just... The way Landis plays their relationship is so strange. It really is, because she's just smitten with him. And listen, she can think he's really handsome or whatever and just have nice chemistry with him. I guess, I mean, I do understand that. But, I mean, how do I put it? It doesn't feel like a real relationship other than the fact the two actors have fantastic chemistry.
Yeah, I think she just...
And that's what saves this whole thing.
She's down for whatever vibe he's given off.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's really attracted to him. It's like pheromones.
Yeah. She gave him a sponge bath. He's got a 9-inch hammer down there.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. She's like, holy shit. Whenever I don't give a
fuck. Yeah,
he's like, I don't give a fuck what this guy does or whatever. He's like, I'm taking this guy home and telling him about all my sexual relationships. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
David has another dream where he's with his family and a bunch of gun-toting Nazi wolves.
Nazi wolves. Who don't look anything like the wolves in the movie. They are a completely different like brand of wolf. Which makes sense. It's just from his subconscious. And this scene is violent and kind of disturbing as fuck, right?
They show up and they blow his family away with Uzis.
Even the kids.
He wakes up and the nurse is there. She opens the curtain and a werewolf comes in with a knife and stabs her to death. It's a dream within a dream.
And I want to give this one a little bit more credit. This was not a complete cliche at this moment in time. It had been done before, but this was a great example of doing it well.
Yeah.
The second part is done well enough to where it gives you a moment to let out a sigh where you think you've escaped that, you're not in the horror sequence anymore. So it does a very good job. Landis is really good about getting you to take a breath for a second and then hitting you with another scare. And this is really well done. It's really out there and strange. And it was so out there. This part of the movie got walkouts. And I guess I can see why. Like I said, it is a rather violent sequence.
David is brought food. And then he starts seeing dead Jack. And I want to say the makeup here is fantastic.
Because he's like gooey still. And like he just has like a little bit like hanging down. Like just some flesh you just want to reach out and just kind of pluck it down.
Clear claw marks.
Yeah. It is like, it's really, really well done.
It's so good.
And also I have to mention that the performance, because he doesn't rush anything. Like this actor takes his real time in this part. Like the way he just plays it like a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, all right, listen, like I know this is a little strange. And of course, David's like, fuck off. Like, as he would be, because he thinks he's either going insane or something worse is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the way it's played. Like this is just a normal thing. He's had time to adjust to his situation and he has to address it to David very quickly. So he'll understand the gravity of what's going to happen. And obviously, it's very tough to get that across to somebody when you are, a half-dead ghost. Or a half-dead, undead ghost, I should say.
He warns David that they were attacked by a werewolf. And David doesn't want to hear it. He's like, whatever, dude. Ghost Jack says that he needs to kill the last werewolf, and that's him. And he needs to kill himself.
Yeah, so the movie introduces really simple lore right there. That anyone who's killed is going to become this undead ghost creature. And that's the only way it can ever be dealt with as long as the bloodline of the wolf is finally dead. The curse is closed out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of the things I wanted to mention since we talked about it a bit last week. We had some of that same concept. That was really the only main concept that was taken from movie to movie. And the way it was done there was obviously not fantastic. It just sort of, I always had the question of those guys who were killing for fun, how'd they get around this problem, right?
Yeah.
How'd they get around ghosts not bugging them all the damn time, right?
Right.
This is like, I just feel like if you were slaughtering tons of people, you'd have like 60 corpses just following you around all the time.
The nurse comes in to check on David.
Well, she comes in to check.
And kisses her instead.
Yeah.
And tells her he's a werewolf and he'll become a monster in 2 days. You know what the nurse does? She invites him to stay at her house.
Yeah. Like I said, she is all about getting this dick. Like she has got to have it. Like that is the long
crazy
and the short of it. She just doesn't really care. And I guess
it's like this delusional guy. I love him.
Well, I suppose like realistically, she really could believe that he's just going through it with the death of his friend and trying to adjust to that from waking up from a coma.
He's delusional.
Yes, he is seeing his dead friend.
If she was a sane person, if you were a sane person, which you are, and you observed that behavior from somebody, you would be like, they're fucking crazy.
Yes, that's the thing. I would say. But the only thing that leads me to believe
like,
is she can
makes me hot.
Yeah. I think she loves that level of trauma. That's her fetish. And she's like, oh yeah. Oh, he's wounded too. Look, he's seeing his dead friend. That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Mama's gonna nurse you back to health.
You just made that wrong.
Did I?
Yeah.
I think I made it right.
No.
I think I made it right.
Well, they ride the subway to her house,
Mm-hmm.
and she tells him she's incredibly attracted to him. I love the way she says it, attracted to him.
Yeah, she has a really great accent. By the way, do you know where we've seen her before? This actress, the one who plays Alex.
I have.
Can you guess the other iconic slasher she has been killed by?
She hasn't been killed by Jason, has she?
She was killed by Chucky. She's the stepmom in Child's Play 2.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, she's the stepmom in that movie. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because I'd seen that first and I was like, hey, it's a stepmom from that movie. So I automatically liked her. And she's very good here. I do want to mention that. I think she's really good.
They end up making out in the shower.
Yeah.
And
So this is right before that when she just tells him her sexual history for some reason, right?
Yeah.
She gives it, I don't know. I guess this is what John Landis considers flirting. But as I said, their relationship is weird and it's only really carried by the chemistry of the two actors here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do want to mention Jenny Agutter, I think's her name. She really does a really good job. They really play off each other nicely.
He goes to the bathroom and sees Ghost Jack again.
Yeah, we get the oldest trick in the book. He pushes the mirror closed and he sees him right in the corner
Mm-hmm.
and screams at full volume, which apparently Alex is the world's heaviest sleeper.
He tells him that he's going to be a werewolf tomorrow and he needs to kill himself before that happens.
And Jack is already significantly more decomposed.
Yeah, David just doesn't want to believe him. His nurse love wakes up and hears him.
And the thing is, like why would this entity lie? You know, and I understand. I wish there was a little bit more character work done into like what David would be going through, which is the real missed opportunity of the other film.
I think he's like old, a spot of cheese and that in his stomach makes him a little loopy.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, lady.
Like the Charles Dickens fucking Christmas Carol.
The Christmas Carol.
Yeah, old Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yes.
He's like seeing ghosts and he thinks it's like a spot of cheese.
Oh, that was the reference.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't get the Dickens reference.
That's what I'm here for.
Now listen, it's not you went for the familiar source, but that's not what my head was at this moment in time. Not where my head was at. I'll give you that. Well, so anyway, McCready has the torn clothes. Oh, okay.
We're not talking about the
Okay,
thing.
sorry.
She urges him back to bed and he tells her that he saw Jack again. He tells her that he's going to become a monster tomorrow. But she's so attracted.
She is still not concerned at
attracted.
all by this. Yeah. She's just like, yeah, Mama's going to nurse you to health. I don't know why I made her Southern there. She's just a British Southern belle.
British Southern Belle. I don't think that's what British Southern Bells sound like.
I gave her a weird accent when I did her voice there. The fact remains that she is crazy. She is the crazy one.
Yeah. The doctor drives up to the pub that David and Jack came to. He's
So, yeah,
trying to get some answers.
Yeah, the doctor, weirdly enough, wants to do some research because he knows that David is adamant about remembering what occurred, that he doesn't have a problem with his memory. And he's seen the wounds. They're a little strange for a person. Granted, they're something that could be done by a quote-unquote lunatic, which I guess is accurate. He would be a lunatic who did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upon entering, he notices the pentagram immediately.
Yeah, he sees it right there and
He-
immediately calls attention to it.
He starts asking about the incident with David and Jack.
They're like, nah, we don't know nothing.
He tells the people that David saw werewolves, and the patrons dismiss him.
Yeah.
So
But they
the-
all like silently like gulp
Yeah.
and like breathe heavy the second he brings it up. So he knows he's onto something.
The doctor leaves the pub and spots one of the patrons out in the rain. He warns the doctor that the boy is in danger. And then we're back with David and his nurse love.
Yeah, so I do like how he runs outside of the pub and he's able to get a little information out of that guy before he's
Somebody
scared
cuts
away.
him off.
Yeah, and it's fine. The doctor has all he needs to know. And honestly, I think I like it the way it's played when he comes back because he really does believe not in a wolf, but that everyone else believes about the werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not true, if David in his highly suggestive state with all that trauma and a head injury, you know, he definitely could be in a bad spot if he thinks he's a werewolf. So I can understand why he wanted to do it. And I guess the motivation does make sense. Even if it's a little strange that he does go out of his way to go into to investigate it where the cops didn't even give a shit.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he did.
Yeah, his motivation is a little ambiguous.
Yeah, about why he went that deep into it. But I mean, I guess if a lot of things to nitpick about the movie, that's just not one thing I'll really harp on. But I will
No,
mention it. You know, I know
no.
people will bring it up. But I'll
doesn't
mention
it doesn't take it away from
No,
him.
not really. That's where some information comes from.
David kisses his nurse love and gets barked at by a dog.
Yeah,
Then gets-
animals are not friendly to David anymore.
Then gets hissed at by a cat.
Yeah.
He climbs through the window. David wanders around the nurse's apartment to pale moon arising.
So yeah, she goes to work, and we have what is, I think so interesting, a scene of waiting.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's just a scene
waiting
of waiting.
montage.
Yeah, a waiting montage. So he goes from not being able to eat, and David never eats, right? He's not hungry at the
Mhm.
hospital. He can't eat here. Still not hungry. And, you know, he just paces and reads and just does everything except, you know, he doesn't even really go outside. You know, he just kind of paces.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads to him eventually just reading, and the montage comes to a slow stop as we settle in on this shot of him reading. And it's just a normal shot. There's nothing strange about it at all. And then just like that, it hits. Like David starts screaming. And like one of the greatest scenes in movie history begins just like that.
It's a great transformation.
Rick Baker's work here, I don't know what else I can say about it. It really is amazing. It looks fantastic today. It looked amazing then. The performance also from the actor is really amazing. Everything comes together in this. You know, how long does this last? Just over a minute?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is a minute you'll never forget once you've seen it. It really is something to behold. And the fact that it hasn't been topped all these years later is another thing that makes this scene amazing.
Yeah.
With all the computer graphics that we have, even Rick Baker himself in other films could not top this scene.
I think The Thing, maybe, could
Well,
top
I
it.
mean, like a werewolf transformation.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like a werewolf transformation. You know, Rick Baker, he did the one in the Wolfman, which is really good. A really great combination of practical and CG. And still, that's not as good as this one is.
I like the one in Ginger Snaps.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of, maybe we should put a list together of the worst werewolf transformations. But
They're out there. God,
Yeah.
we've seen them.
yeah, no, I think that a lot of movies do have some nice ones. So The Howling, I think, is a nice one as well. Even though I'm not a big fan of The Howling, but we'll get to The Howling eventually.
We see the nurse taking care of her patients. And then, like you said, David starts flipping out and begins to turn. It seems very painful, but is done very well in practical effects.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We are kept with the pain of this event. And there's even a little joke that he says he shouldn't have called Jack Meatloaf.
Yeah.
You know, he has just the presence of mind to, you know, just keep the tongue in the cheek for just one last moment before it becomes the wolf as we go through this whole thing.
And then we see a couple who gets out of a cab and they go around the back of their apartment because they want to startle their friends.
Yeah. And
But
boy,
they
they're
get
in for a
attacked.
surprise. Yeah, they're attacked by the wolf. And so here we get the limit of what the wolf can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just sort of the head on a stick coming at these guys. And, you know, and that's all it is. But I think the way it's shot, Landis is very smart to use the darkness and POV and smart camera choices to cover that.
Yeah.
And it makes this effective as this couple is shredded and they're their friend comes out to check on them and like wanders out, still like has his drink in hand, and steps on like a severed arm before he realizes something's amiss.
The doctor is concerned about David and talks to the nurse about it.
Yes, that does occur.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
No,
know everything. You must know everything.
You must know it all. He's happy that they're able to get a hold of him, but but he is certainly concerned. And once again, the nurse is not concerned by anything. Alex doesn't care.
The doctor tells the nurse that he tried to investigate the evidence brought forward in the David Jack attack. He's a real smart guy and a good detective. A bunch of homeless guys are around a fire, and they get attacked by David.
Yeah, this is another rough one. These guys are just hanging out, and it's very similar. John Landis keeps their focus on their reactions, and as they see the wolf getting closer, it's only a matter of, and they only get a few seconds before they hear a roar, and then we see the wolf head come at him, and then that's it.
Well, we get it on the backdrop of the doctor talking about how concerned he is for David.
Yeah.
And then we see David just being fucking crazy as a wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
like, we see exactly what that kind of carnage can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we don't really see the attacks, but we can feel them by how they're shot. Yeah. We certainly know there's a brutality to them.
Yeah, absolutely. A man in the subway tunnels hears something growling.
And here's the real gem
of
this sequence here.
He goes up an escalator, and there is David Wolf, ready to eat him.
Yeah, so I had nightmares about like this London subway tunnels for a long time. Like this scene when I was younger really stuck with me, and the way it was shot. I do want to mention we do get an ad for an orgy before the chase begins on the wall. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't notice that.
See you next Wednesday. Do you know what that is? See you next Wednesday?
I've heard it before.
Well, they say it in Thriller. See you next Wednesday. And it's just a reference that John Landis puts in his movies.
Mm.
And in this one, it's a porno movie that plays a little bit later on that they're advertising right there. But I wanted to mention it right now because I'll probably forget more at that point later on. Other things to talk about. But the way this scene builds, and by the way, like I do love that this is the most British man ever.
Yeah.
Because as the scene begins, like I think where somebody would have been like, no funny business. I don't want anything strange going on. So I'm in no mood for your amusements, I think is what he says when he hears a noise coming from like the back of the cab until he realizes that it's something more ferocious. And his reaction of like, oh God, when he sees it is really great. I love the way it's played, like him running as fast as he can, until he's got nothing left and face plants on the escalator steps.
Yeah, he trips and falls up the escalator, but David Wolf still comes for him.
Yeah, and we see just enough. And he comes into the top of the frame. It's a wide shot from the top of the steps, and we can see everything from here. David's slowly creeps in as the wolf, and we only see a little bit of him, but it's enough to make the effect convincing, and it looks really good. And I think I joked right then, like right as they cut, like you can see like the cart that Wolf was on, whatever made it work. Like Rick Baker was right on the other side of that cut. But it's just fantastic the way it's held up. And, you see the POV camera right over him, and that this guy's absolutely fucked.
It fades away to a lion roaring in a zoo.
Which is not what you would expect. It's a great cut. Like when you think that slash is coming in, we open right back up at the zoo to this jump cut of seeing the lion roar.
David wakes up with the wolves.
Which makes sense. Like his wolf self just came in to chill out with him.
He gets out of there.
Which were real wolves, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, real wolves.
I have a story.
Okay.
Yeah, calm down.
All right.
He runs around naked and goes into a bush where he pays a little British kid for his balloons.
So, you know what you shouldn't do if you become a werewolf and you wake up in a British museum butt naked? You should not go into a bush and whisper at a small child. This is not the strategy you need to take to get new clothes. And also, if you're going to get those clothes, balloons would not be the best thing to grab. Balloons? No, he could have grabbed the kid's hat. He could have done anything else, or certainly not bothered the kid. Like, I feel like that was terrible judgment by that terrible child actor.
He ends up finding a woman's red coat, and he gets on the bus.
I do like that when he has this is a shot of this woman talking with her peacoat just on the bench right beside her, and David is just hauling ass with the balloons covering his junk, and then just whoosh, whisks the coat up and runs right out of frame. It's I like the way it's shot. Very funny.
He shows up at the nurse's house, and she's happy to see him. The doctor calls, and she tells him he's there.
Yeah.
The doctor wants her to bring David to him. David is acting crazy.
But David is feeling incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's high energy, very horny.
yeah, he does not We know immediately he does not remember what occurred last night. He has no memory of it all. He even tells her, like, I was reading and then I guess I fell asleep. But, he doesn't know. And he doesn't really seem to care that he wandered out there. So, he's just thrilled and loving life and loving Alex. And they get in the car, and that's when it all comes crashing down. Because immediately the chatty cab driver lets them know about the murders in the city.
Yeah.
5 or 6 left, half eaten, I think is what the headline was when they finally get out and look at the paper.
And so David gets out of the car. He knows it was him.
Yeah, and that's the second he says it, you can see the look on his face, puts together like, holy shit, that was me. That's why I can't remember where I was. I had turned into a werewolf and killed people. He does a great job, honestly.
He runs up to a cop and tries to get arrested.
Yeah, now he doesn't do a great job because if he wanted to get arrested, he just slug the cop, right?
Yeah.
Like, he can get, like, you can go to jail.
Call his mother a cunt or something.
Yeah, instead he calls Churchill an F, and he says a bunch of other bad things about British history and British historical
apparently
figures.
at the time, this was when Charles and Diana were going to get married.
Yeah.
So it was like bad news to say things about the king and queen.
Yeah. There's an apology in the credits about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, we both know the story. Stay tuned, and Meredith will tell it to you later.
She should just punch him in the face and drag him to the doctor.
Yeah. She really should, because that's all she wants for him to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And listen, if he goes to the doctor, he probably kills like 50 people in the hospital ward, right? Because that's the one thing we want to talk about. The wolf is like unstoppable.
Yeah, he just turned.
Yeah, like you are not going to, unless you have a gun, there's nothing you're going to do. Nobody's got a gun in this country. The hell's the matter with this? Everyone's should carry a gun. I've got 2 on me right now.
No, you don't.
It's not true.
He runs away from her. She goes to tell the doctor he's missing, but David calls home.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the movie's more kind of touching scenes. Like, and it's still played in a realistic way. Like, that's sort of how the comedy is in this movie. Like, the movie's just sort of a more realistic take of what might occur if you might find yourself turned into a werewolf. But he calls home, and I think his little little sister answers.
His little sister
answers. And you can tell on the other end, she's like, yeah, okay, David, whatever, right?
Yeah.
She has other things. Yeah, nobody's home. Like, I want to get back to watching TV. What do you want? And he's like trying to say his final goodbyes. It's a nice little touchy moment, if not, I don't know if it's necessarily funny, but I think it's amusing and maybe touching how realistic it could feel.
He hangs up after telling her he loves her and his parents and tries to kill himself with a pocket knife. But instead, he stops and runs into a dirty theater and spots Jack.
Now he doesn't. Now he sees Jack
wave to him.
Yeah, he sees him wave to him, which I really like, and you can tell he's more messed up, but you can't quite see just yet because it's a wide shot.
Yeah, Jack's deteriorating quickly.
Yeah, and he brings him into a porno theater.
David tells he doesn't remember anything and that he's glad to see him.
And their report. And by the way, at this point, Jack is just a puppet.
Yeah.
I do believe the actor is like right beside the puppeteer, like was they're both performing the character together, and their rapport is still there. I really like how like it was like, oh God, you look awful. Like, thanks. Mm-hmm. and even like David's like, it's not what I meant. Like he wasn't trying to be a jerk about it. It's just the first thing he thought to say.
Yeah.
But the effect, even though cheesy, I think still looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's phony, but that doesn't really matter. There's like a craftsmanship to it that I can appreciate. Like you can see the muscles in his cheek and stuff moving as he's trying to talk to David. It's really nice. And the vocal performance is good as well. It's just like he should normally be. You know, he's happy to see him despite everything. But the scene does turn against David as it continues on, and he has to introduce him to his new kills.
His first victim of being a werewolf. David apologizes to him for killing him. Jack brings all his other victims.
What's he say? I am a victim of your lunar carnivorous activities.
Yes.
This isn't Mr. Goodman's idea. He's your good friend, whereas I am a victim of your carnivorous lunar activities.
It's a great way to put that. I'm going to make that my band name. Lunar Carnivorous Activities.
All of his victims keep telling him he needs to kill himself. They speculate on how he should do it. So there's a bit of a comedic moment.
And this
here.
is, I think, one of the more
Yes.
macabre comedic sequences where they're kind of going back and forth about the way they could do it. You know, he could do it. You know, the couple, weirdly enough, is super mellow about it, right?
Yeah.
Like she's just like, well, you know, shit happens, right? Like she's like, well, you didn't want to be a werewolf, so why should I be mad at you? Which is, I mean, I get it. Like, I mean, I guess I'd be mad too, but like, I wouldn't hate on the guy for the rest of my fucking undead existence for that reason. Like, he didn't choose to be a damn werewolf.
David starts to turn in the theater, and this is where you got that scene with the nails coming through.
Yeah, we just
fingers.
watched this earlier right before we got here. We watched a couple clips before I came in. And yeah, like he has his nails like come right through his fingers, and it looks so painful. And that's the one thing that I think is really portrayed by David in this, is that how much this hurts.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just writhing in pain, like as the transformation begins, begging people to run away before he knows he has to he knows he's going to destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to maim and kill them.
Well, he takes some people out all right. The cops come into the theater and they just see mutilated victims everywhere. And one of the cops sees David Wolf eating someone.
Yeah, because the usher comes in, he gets got, and then the cop comes in, and then he immediately sees that and like nopes the fuck out. He shuts the door and tries to keep David in by shutting the security door to the theater, I suppose. But that's not very effective. I like the way the scene is shot, and I didn't know this until earlier when I did some research. But I was like, man, those extras are really into it.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, like, man, those extras are into it. And I found out that they actually thought that there was an animal that was going to escape.
Oh, really?
They were told, like, the cameras were there. And then that's basically what happens, like, right before we see is like, oh my God, one of the lines we have for this movie's escaped. Oh my God, it's escaped. And then they start acting the scene. And so everyone's reaction is like, oh God. It's like legitimately genuine out there. They really thought some lion or a wolf was just going to come flying out of there and kill them all.
Damn.
So
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's if you ever look at it, like those British people, they are excited. And that's why.
They try to barricade the wolf in the theater, but he escapes and decapitates one of the policemen's heads.
Yeah, like he just flies right through the barricade and immediately decapitates the policeman in one bite.
He goes into the busy streets and causes huge, ugly car accidents and multiple cars, killing multiple people.
So if you've ever seen other John Landis movies, we just talked about the Blues Brothers, like that is one thing that you see in the Blues Brothers is like a lot of car crashes. And by the way, they were not cleared to do any car crashes. And they just did them anyway. That's just how John Landis rolls. We've talked about it before. This whole scene is just utter mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wolf just causes this domino effect of absolute chaos. You know, people crashing, flying out of their cars, getting run over, people trampling each other, trying to get away. It is absolute anarchy out there.
It's gnarly.
All caused by this wolf.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's a really amazing, like the finale of this movie is just electric. It absolutely is. You don't forget this last 10 minutes.
The nurse sees all the commotion and hops out of the car and heads towards it. She finds David and she gets past the police barricade. They've managed to corner him.
Yeah, so I do want to mention that the British SWAT team has cornered him. But like the British SWAT team, it's like, what the fuck, man? Like here in America, we got like body armor, bulletproof vest, Kevlar, multiple weapons. These guys show up in like a sweater with like one gun.
Yeah.
It's like, what? No, man, you need more than that to stop a wolf. And turns out you really don't.
Carry guns in.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell kind of SWAT team shit is this? Yeah. I was like, I can't play the SWAT theme for this. I'm probably playing it right now, but it just amused the hell out of me, the difference in the police perspective.
She goes towards David Wolf.
And yeah, by the way, she just plows right through the cops to get to him.
He moves towards her and gets shot multiple times.
Do you believe he recognizes her? No, I don't think so. I think he's moving to her like an animal would.
I know you get a shot of the eyes, so we're supposed to lead to believe that maybe
that he does sort of recognize her.
But
no, I believe he's pure animal in that when he's transformed. There's nothing he can do to control himself or anything like that. That like David is not in there. Like the police had to shoot and did a great job shooting around her.
Yeah, they kill him and he changes back into his regular self.
So I was talking shit about the cops, but you know they take him down like that. So yes, I do agree with you. I do not think he had any control. He immediately transforms. Everybody walks up and sees that this wolf has now become this man. We have 5 seconds of staring at Alex as she cries, and then boom, cut to black.
We go out on Blue Moon and the credits roll.
Yeah. So yeah, and that ends the movie. We get a very abrupt ending, no falling action or anything like that. But it wasn't a movie about that. I talked about this last week, that the kind of nihilistic view of this film, like there is no answer, there is no cure, there is no magic bullet, there is nothing that's going to stop the curse. David is going to die, and he's going to kill a lot of people along with it. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing he can really do about that.
He didn't bite anybody else, so that's good.
Yeah. Everybody he bit, he killed.
Yeah.
So the curse does end with him, thankfully. And I guess that's the weird happy ending of the movie, is that no one else will be cursed to walk undead or make more of them. So that's a small positive, I suppose, but I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those elements that's always stuck with me, the hopelessness of this movie. Almost every other narrative of a werewolf movie seems to have, how can we cure or stop the curse if we're with the wolf, unless the wolf is just the bad guy. Then that's obviously not the story.
Well, have I got some facts for you?
All right, lay 'em on me.
Rick Baker claimed to have been disappointed by the amount of time spent shooting the face-changing shot for the transformation after having spent months working on the mechanism. John Landis only required one take lasting about 7 seconds. Baker felt that he had wasted his time until seeing the film with an audience. They applauded during the shot.
Yeah, it actually gave him a standing ovation when the sequence was over. And that meant the world to Rick Baker.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. You know, Rick Baker had...
They should have given him a fucking Oscar.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But it is... I mean, like I said, the work is truly groundbreaking. It absolutely is. I find it amusing that he was upset that it didn't get his proper respect at the time. He just had to wait a little bit.
Griffin Dunn, who plays Jack, stated in 2007 that his biggest fear was his mother, who was ill at the time, would not be able to handle seeing a film where her son appeared as a mutilated corpse. When she finally saw it, she was deeply disturbed.
Well, I guess I can imagine the makeup is really good on him. Yeah,
especially in the very beginning.
If you were ever curious what someone you loved would look like, absolutely mauled, well, she knows.
Yeah. The cat on the window ledge was prompted to hiss at David by holding up another cat towards his face.
That's some great old school filmmaking technique right there.
Yeah, because I know if we did that to Tebow, he would hiss.
Yeah.
Rick Baker plays one of the Nazi werewolves in the nightmare sequence, specifically the one who slashes David's throat.
Yeah. That's old Rick Baker getting involved in the action. That's sort of the way it works to make, okay?
You got to give him something.
Yeah.
David Naughton, who plays David, recalled the zoo scene as for running naked around London Zoo in the scene where I'm on the wolf cage. The only reassurance I had was that wolves had just been fed, but the handlers did say there is to be no loud noises or fast moves. Okay, I said hopefully. This will just be one take, so start rolling those cameras.
And so they did the one take, and hell, that's all I give him too.
Michael Jackson was so bowled over by this movie, most especially by the makeup and visual effects. He insisted on having the responsible party for his planned music video Thriller. When John Landis agreed to direct, he brought the whole crew with him to direct the video, including Rick Baker.
Yeah, and that's why Michael Jackson has the excellent zombie and werewolf makeup on him as well.
And there's like a story to it.
Yeah.
Music video.
Yeah, it was the first time that was really done. Yeah, to do like a big budget like video. That was the first time. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Yeah. And John Landis is forever a part of music history in that way.
This next fact is one of my favorites because you know how much of a fan I am of Cat Stevens.
Yes. Okay. I know what fact this is.
John Landis fought hard to secure the rights to the Cat Stevens song Moonshadow to use in the film. But because the film dealt with the supernatural, the undead, and werewolves, and also because of the graphic violence, Stephen, who had since converted to Islam, had his name changed to Yusuf Islam, refused Landis's request. I just love that because I don't know if the song would have fit in the movie, but I do love that song.
Well, I don't think the song necessarily fit. I think that's sort of the point of why he used them.
He just wanted it because it said moon.
But yeah, basically. And I know the song, and I think it would have worked nicely into the movie. But I do like that Cat Stevens was like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know the Elvis estate was very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't let that as well.
Yeah. Last fact I have here, the opening scene of the movie depicts friends David and Jack on a walking tour of Yorkshire, northern England. Because of the cold and dampness of the location, Griffin Dunn's nose was running. While delivering a line of dialogue, Naughton glanced over at Dunn just in time to see him catching and wiping away a stream of snot running from his nose. Naughton laughed at the sight of Dunn's discomfort, making Dunn begin to laugh. Because of the spontaneity of the shot and it was largely improvised, John Landis decided to use the shot that was to use in the movie.
Yeah, and like I said, those little things really help sell their relationship. So I have a couple of facts, one of which is how we almost got American Werewolf in Paris much earlier.
Okay.
So basically, when they went to go get visas for this movie, they were given them for John Landis, Rick Baker, David not in the lead actor, but they weren't given one. They weren't given one for Griffin Dunn. Basically, the British Film Office, they were trying to make a case that said like, we believe that a British person should play that role. And John Landis was like, okay, I guess it could be American Werewolf in Paris then. And immediately threatened to move the production over to Paris and just completely abandon that. They backed down almost immediately.
Yeah.
And gave him the pass and allowed him to enter the country. Yeah, but yeah, you really did have to get most everything approved. Of course, John Landis didn't really care about that and did car crashes later on, but that was one thing that they really tried to push him on that they had no leverage for. And so he got him anyway. And I do have one last fact for you. I know I don't usually do them, but this is one I have to mention as well, is that do you know what David Naughton was famous for before this movie?
Dr. Pepper.
He was the Dr. Pepper spokesman. That's right.
Yeah.
Would you like to be a Pepper too? He would sing the song, and this is how people knew his name and his face. And listen, he's a charming guy. He really is. The thing about this was he did so much nudity in this movie that Dr. Pepper fired him.
Yeah.
And I love that this movie cost him like a really lucrative gig, but at least this ended up becoming a classic film.
Yeah.
So at least he has that to hang his hat on, but it did cost him big time. And it was the death of that campaign just because he showed his ass. Well, you do see his dick in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't like helicopter for the camera, but you do see it.
Okay, so reviews for this movie, as you could probably know, were really good. 4.5 user review, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. And I had to scour the reviews to find a 1-star review.
Oh, I could imagine a movie as beloved as this one. Even if people haven't seen it, they still say they love it.
And it's short and sweet.
Oh, good.
I went to see this one with high hopes, but left the theater wishing I could get my money back. The plot was good, as was the initial transformation scene, but Rick Baker should have quit halfway through that. The finished werewolf looked more like a scruffy chow dog than a ravening werewolf, certainly not as good as the werewolves in The Howling, Bad Moon, or Dog Soldiers. Anyway, every horror movie buff knows you need silver bullets to kill a werewolf. The movie had a very scary moments, but they were cheapened by the director's attempt to slip in some bathroom humor and low comedy for the teenagers in the audience. The nude sex scene was pretty good, although Jenny Agutter really needed to be fed some cheeseburgers. She was so skinny, she looked like a Twiggy wannabe. The man who played the doctor in London and the guys in the pub were the best actors in the whole film. Actually, the old 1950s film, The Werewolf, was much better even though it was made on a shoestring budget. He really hated it.
Yeah, he did not particularly care for this movie.
I found one guy that...
Or the actress's physique for some reason.
Yeah, she was too skinny.
Yeah, all right, give us some cheeseburgers. They don't do cheeseburgers out there.
They don't eat cheeseburgers?
No, they don't eat cheeseburgers. They eat fish and chips.
They're missing out.
Yeah. they think the same thing about us at fish and chips and breakfast beans.
I like a breakfast bean.
Yeah, well, they eat like ranch style beans for breakfast.
I'm good with that.
Are you?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of this house.
I like beans.
No, we're not doing that.
We're gonna have beans for dinner.
No, we're not having any beans. No more beans anymore. All right, time to wrap this show up. Or is it time? Well, in the year of 1981, Roger Ebert was very much alive. And he did review American Werewolf in London. And you know what? I actually got a little clip from Mr. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel talking about American Werewolf in London and the fact that it was actually going to get an Academy Award nomination. And this was the first of its kind for makeup effects. And so they actually had to explain the award a little bit, which seems kind of quaint to us, but I guess to them, it was a pretty big deal.
Well, now here he is, Sparky the Wonder Dog, signaling a change of pace. This week, rather than bad movies, we want to spotlight a new Academy Award category that will be coming up in this year's Oscar presentation, March 29th. The category is Best Makeup, and there are only 2 nominees. Roger, you go first.
Well, makeup has always been one of the basic tools of the actor, and in recent years there have been amazing technological advances in the whole field, advances that have tended to blur the distinction between makeup, which is essentially any means of altering the appearance of a human actor, and special effects which create a whole new reality out of pure illusion. One of the masters of this developing field is a young man named Rick Baker, whose credits include King Kong, and who was nominated this year for his work on An American Werewolf in London. Here's an example of his work. The scars on the face of this helpless actor are makeup made with foam rubber, paints, and dyes. And this hand is makeup, but after they cut away to the actor, they cut back to a special effect, an artificial mechanical hand that stretches itself into a werewolf's paw. And here's great teamwork between makeup and special effects as actors undergo a transformation into fearsome imaginary beasts. Rick Baker's name may not be very widely known, but his werewolves certainly are.
So yeah, there's them talking about the actual makeup effects and that it was going to get an Oscar nomination. What a big deal it was. I cut the clip a little bit early because they talk about the other movie that's on there. And anyway, the point that I cut out, sadly, is that Gene Siskel doesn't think it should be a real Academy Award.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but his argument is that he doesn't think there'll be an astounding achievement in every year for makeup. He said it only should be given away every now and then. Yeah, I guess he couldn't see that like this was going to be a very, very big deal. People were going to be doing makeup effects until the end of cinema.
Yeah, pretty much.
But in 1981, Roger Ebert did actually write up the film. And do you think he liked it?
Yeah.
He gave it 2 stars.
That's pretty good for a horror movie.
2 stars. Roger Ebert says, An American Werewolf in London seems curiously unfinished, as if director John Landis spent all his energy on spectacular set pieces and then didn't want to bother with things like transitions, character development, or an ending. The movie has sequences that are spellbinding, and then long stretches where nobody seems sure what's going on. There are times when the special effects almost wipe the characters off the screen. It's weird. It's not a very good film, and it falls well below Landis's work in National Lampoon's Animal House and the rambunctious Blues Brothers. Landis never seems very sure whether he's making a comedy or a horror film, so he winds up with genuinely funny moments, acting as a counterpoint to the gruesome undead. Combining horror and comedy is an old tradition. My favorite example is Bride of Frankenstein. But the laughs and the blood coexist very uneasily in this film. One of the off-screen stars of the film is Rick Baker, the young makeup genius who created the movies Wounds, Gore, and Werewolves. His work is impressive, yes, but unless you're single-mindedly interested in special effects, American Werewolf is a disappointment. And even the special effects, good as they are, come as an anticlimax if you're really a dedicated horror fan. Because if you are, you've already seen this movie's high point before. The on-screen transformation of a man into a werewolf was anticipated in The Howling, in which the special effects were done by a Baker protege named Rob Bottin. The movie's plot involves 2 young American students, David Naughton and Griffin Dunn, who are backpacking across the English moors. They stumble into a country pub where everyone is ominously silent, and then one guy warns them to beware the full moon and stick to the road. They don't, and are attacked by werewolves. Dunn is killed and Naughton is severely wounded, and a few days later in the hospital, Naughton is visited by a decaying cadaver of Dunn, who warns him that he'll turn into a werewolf at a full moon. Naughton ignores the warning, falls in love with a nurse, and moves in with her when he's discharged from the hospital. Then follows a series of increasingly gruesome walk-ons by Dunn, who begs Naughton to kill himself before the full moon. Naughton doesn't and turns into a werewolf, runs amok through London. That gives director John Landis his chance to stage a spectacular multi-car accident in Piccadilly Circus. Crashes have been his specialty since this homecoming parade in Animal House and the non-stop carnage in Blues Brothers. The best moment in American Werewolf probably belongs to Dunn, who may be a decaying cadaver, but keeps right on talking like a college student. Believe me, he says at Naughton's bedside, this isn't a whole lot of fun. The scene in which Naughton turns into a werewolf is well done, with his hands elongated in growing claws, and his face twisted into a snout and fangs. But it's as if John Landis thought the technology would be enough. We never get a real feeling for the characters. We never really believe the places, especially the awkward, phony pub and its stagey customers. And we are particularly disappointed by the ending. I won't reveal the ending, such as it is, except to say it's so sudden, arbitrary, and anticlimactic at that. Although we are willing for the movie to be over, we still can't quite believe it. 2 stars. To me, the movie's a solid 8.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a solid 8 because Ebert does bring up really good points.
Yeah,
the movie's character
he does.
work is laughable, and Alex's motivations are strange, and
Yeah.
they make her seem like she could be crazy, but they don't really explore that. A remake or a reboot could have explored a lot of these ideas, and so I think it's a movie that certainly could be rebooted or remade again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Could make it grittier.
yeah, I think you could certainly dive into a little bit more character work. You could either make it more, well, I don't think you want to make it more, but you can make it less comedic.
Yeah.
Focus on more of the horror element of it. Do like maybe what was done with the Evil Dead remake in 2013. Like that was a less comedic version of the original Evil Dead movie. Maybe you could do something like that with this movie. Or if you had a really fun idea for it, you could do something more comedic.
Mm-hmm.
It does depend. You just don't want to do what they did with American Werewolf in Paris again, which we gave one of our lowest recommendations, unlike this movie.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, I think that's it for American
That
Werewolf.
wraps
Yeah.
We're gonna try something a little lighter next time.
Yeah, we're gonna do Solo next time. No, we're not.
Solo was never remade.
No, we're never. One day we'll do Solo.
No, no, we won't.
Yeah. Well, Solo. Would they reboot it? We got to do it. I don't think they're gonna reboot Solo.
If they ever reboot it, which they'll never reboot that movie,
They might.
we'll never watch it.
I'll make you eat those words, woman.
I dare you.
All right, guys. With that, we say goodbye.
Bye.